Hello. Do you ever feel like everything you work hard for is too hard, frustrating, or that your goals are unattainable? If so, I may have a solution for you. Hello, I'm Donald Henderson, and this is an introduction to my coaching philosophy that I call the flow. By the way, if you stick with me to the very end of this video, I have an offer for you. So keep watching. And by the way, the offer is free. Yes, free. So let's go back a little bit of history here, how I came up with this philosophy. Philosophy is basically I learned better, faster, easier ways existed. I come from a background to where you follow the course. You follow what your teachers tell you, your parents tell you, your bosses tell you, and especially in shop class, the right tool for the right job. I remember one shop teacher getting after all of us because we were using a screwdriver to open up a can of paint. If that's all you got, that's what you're going to use. Yeah, the best tool for the best job is a good idea, but you don't have it available all the time. Anyhow, also, this is from a class that I teach or have taught in person. So I printed out some of my slides here so I can give you some visuals, like if you were in the room with me, you would see. So let's see here. Where did it all start out? For me, when I first started thinking this way was in junior high school, as they call today middle school. And I started taking martial arts. No, that's not me. I was taking Kempo Karate. And the biggest lesson did not come from my sensei, who I really thought was a cool dude. It came from another student who was bigger, more experienced, older than me, pretty much kicked my butt. He asked me if I wanted to spar, and I went, sure, get some practice. I had no idea what was under the hood with this guy. He did things that were like magic. And I talked to him after a while, after we were sparring for a while, and he was pretty much turning me into pulp, where he learned this stuff. And he said, this particular style is called Aikido. And let me tell you what Aikido is. It's very fascinating and it's really cool. I've never got trained in it, but I have watched it before, and it's very smooth. It's a Japanese form of self-defense and martial art that uses locks, holds, throws, and the opponent's own movements. Replace movements with energy, because that's what it's actually doing, is redirecting energy. And if you ever think, have I ever seen Aikido before? If you like martial arts movie, you know who this guy is. Steven Seagal. That his primary style is Aikido. So what it is, it's using your opponent's energy against them. Not against them like, most martial arts is force against force, punching, kicking, doing other unmentionable things to someone else's body. But what this guy was doing to me is like every time I came after him, he had me up on the floor. He didn't go on the floor, he on the floor. I would run up to him and I'd take a swing and he would parry to the side, grab my arm and just take me, because I was already going that direction. So he's going my direction, but not for my benefit. Okay. So, by the time we were done, besides being bruised and out of breath and sore and everything else, he didn't even break a sweat. So I found that really fascinating. That's when I first started realizing there's other ways to get things done that are faster, easier, probably less expensive. So anyhow, that's where it started, was in junior high martial arts. And when I was a kid, let's take the clock back even farther. When I was a young kid, I was sick a lot. I had bad asthma, allergies and asthma. And so most of the adults that are around me were in the medical field, including my doctor, who I thought was a great dude. He listened. He, treated me like a person, not just like a child or a patient. Um, I almost died a couple times, and he saved me both times. So I really owed him a lot. But he inspired me, and I thought, wow, maybe when I grow up, I can be a doctor too, and save people, be a healer. So medicine got into my system. So when I was in high school, excuse me, junior high school and high school, I bought some books and I would go to the library, medical books, and I'd read through things and read a section that I thought was interesting, and then it would click something else in my mind. I'd go in the other section, or they have a reference to another section. I'd read that. So by the time I was in college, I knew quite a bit about healthcare and medicine and medication, things like that. And I got accepted into a local university where I lived, and they were associated with a medical school. And I thought, this is perfect. I could probably take the pre-med classes with them, and then it should be a shoe-in to get into medical school, right? So my parents, although they were good and had good intentions, I think they both graduated high school. Neither one went to college, and I was looking for help because I was going like, I need to sign up for my classes. And we in this one section of the catalog talked about pre-med and what they recommend you do in classes, or what they require as far as a load, how many classes take, how many units, your grades, all that kind of stuff. And my dad found in that section was one page, a single page, and it was like by quarter, by each term, what classes you should take, and then which classes you take and the like. And the thing is that my dad said, well, it's in black and white. That's what you should do. We didn't really read the part about you have choices. You have some flexibility in meeting some of those requirements. You still had humanities requirements, or I did. I didn't even know what humanities was until I went to that college. And what they wanted you to take was some of the things that we studied was ancient Greek and Roman history and their culture and all that kind of stuff. Completely foreign to me. I never read anything about it, never studied it in high school. I took it. It was interesting. I followed the course. Did not do well. In fact, I flunked out. I got kicked out. My advisor said, you know what? If you really want to come back, what you can do is go to this local community college. They're on the same schedules we're on. Take these courses, full load, get A's, and come back to see us, and we'll talk. And, if you do that, we'll probably let you back into pre-med. Okay. By the way, I didn't do that because they kind of pissed me off because they were fighting me. I was trying to explain to them what the problem was, but they didn't want to hear it. Oh, by the way, pre-med, that's what all the books are. Tons of books. Books. So one of the things I learned is there's hard rules and soft rules. And so in order to take that load level at the community college, I had to take math. And I've already taken a lot of math in high school. So the next level of math that I had to take, because they progress you, is calculus. Now, I didn't need calculus for anything I did the rest of my life. I didn't need it for pre-med. I didn't need it for what major I went into next, but I had to take it. And the humanities class, I enjoyed it. I never used it again. So that's a hard rule, is that I had to take that class. There's soft rules too. So anyhow, one of the classes I took was Psychology 101. It's kind of an overview of psychology. It had all sorts of different things in it. And I realized, hey, I could become a psychologist. I can still help people. I can still be a healer. Not necessarily medicine, because that was something I learned about the field when I was at the university. Was there was things about it I did not know and I didn't care for. So anyhow, it was a good decision. Would I have made a good doctor? Probably. But I didn't want to go through the hoops that pre-med and med was all about. So anyhow, I learned going to school that there are options, okay? So there's more than one way to get to your goal. For me, it was being a healer or helping people, which is still there. I still want to do it, but I'm not a clinician. I never went that far. So here's another one. When I was in college, I had a Honda Civic, and they were notorious for the headlights going out all the time, the old-fashioned headlamps. And, I'd take the car into the dealership and they would replace it for me. And, it was being a starving student, it wasn't really in my budget to get that done. So I was complaining to my brother, and he's kind of a do-it-yourself kind of a guy. And he says, Don, you got to buy this book. And what it is like a mechanic's book for the make and model of your car. I don't know if they still sell them. I'm sure they do. But anyhow, had another light go out. So I went to the auto parts store, bought another headlamp, opened up the book, went through all the steps. I kid you not. My front end of my car in the driveway looked like it was an IKEA project. There was screws and nuts and bolts and the grill from the front of the car and the little rings that go around the headlights. I mean, I practically had my whole front end taken apart. It took me almost all day to work on that. I got it done. But it's like, not only did I not have much money being a student, I didn't have a lot of time because I needed to study. I had a full load, and I worked really hard for those A's. Anyhow, so the next time that a headlamp went out, I went back to the dealership, and I had a pretty good relationship with the guy behind the counter, and I said, look, you know what? I'm a student. I don't have a lot of money, and this is really killing me here. Can you refer me to anybody that's kind of like a automobile handyman, someone who, won't charge that much, you can put it in for me? And he says, you know what, I understand where you're at. We've got quite a few customers that are going to school, and they're in the same boat as you are. And he says, I'll be right back. And he went through the back door, disappeared for about 10 minutes, came back, and he says, tell you what, Bob, one of our mechanics, he's going on lunch soon, and when he goes out to lunch, drive around the back. You got go across the hallway here and go buy a headlamp and bring it to him, and he'll put it in for you. Slip him a few bucks, and he'll take care of it. So I pulled around back at the right time, and he was just walking out the building and just finishing his sandwich. And he says, "You're Don?" "Yeah, I'm Don." He says, "You want me to replace the headlamp?" I said, "Yes, please." He says, "You got one?" I pulled it out, handed it to him. He says, "Okay, good. You got the right one." And I was telling him about my experience of doing it myself, and he was kind of ignoring me. And instead of taking the whole grill off, the whole front end of the car off, he had reached in his pocket and pulled out a little screwdriver, and there's two little screws there. And he went, grabbed the headlamp, pulled it out, unplugged it, put it on the ground, took the other one out of the box, put it in there, plugged it in, tightened those two little screws, didn't have to aim it, didn't have to focus it, nothing. It was all pre-done. And he says, that's all you need to do. And I looked at him and I told him what I did, and he says, throw that book away. He didn't say it, but what I inferred is that they make that book so do-it-yourselfers get so tired of it, you're still going to come back to the dealership. So needless to say, this guy's got experience. So instead of going by the book and taking forever, he knew all the shortcuts. He knew what to get right to the problem and fix the problem. To me, that's a flow. Easier, faster, cheaper. So anyhow, needless to say, I kept the book around for like a coffee table book for a while. What's the next thing? Life experiences, reading, watching others. I also studied successful people. A lot of people who have done some great things, accomplished a lot. never graduated college, and some of them didn't even graduate high school. If you think about people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, none of them have an official degree. What they did, instead of focusing on the degree, the steps, the official way of getting someplace, they were more as to what and where. Where am I going? What am I trying to accomplish, as opposed to how to get there? One of my teachers, when I was in doing real estate investing, I don't think he graduated high school either. Didn't care much for school. And what he did, if he needed to learn something, like if it was at a college, he would audit the class. And if you know what auditing is, basically you pay to attend, you buy the book, but you're not graded, you're not tested, you go to learn. That's it. And that's what he would do. And he said, when I needed something, I would go get it. Or I would hire someone to do that for me. So he never got a degree. He says, why do I want to take all these other things that are required? All I want to do is get the information so I can run my business. There is more than one way to get to where you want to go. Okay, you need to be flexible. You need to have some lateral thinking and look around and see if there's other ways to attack this problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad I got my degree. Okay, I did really well in test scores. I was on all these honor lists. I met some really cool people, both students and faculty, and some guests we had in some of our colloquium. But only a small percentage of that helped me with my career, okay? Like the math. I never used math again, or not math, but calculus. Never used calculus. I used to tutor statistics. Today, I couldn't do it if you put a gun to my head. So I never used it after I graduated. Now, if I went to graduate school, which I got accepted in, but I decided, this isn't for me, it would be useful for that, because statistics and research go hand in hand, and you need that for either doing research, which is required a lot of the time, or just to understand someone else's research if you're going to read their papers, okay? Never used it. Never again. So looking back at what I've learned from these other people is that if there's a way you can do things faster and cheaper, do it, okay? Are there appropriate places for getting a college degree? Yeah, if you're going to do something that requires it, like if you're going to go into medicine and become a physician or a nurse, or if you're going to be a lawyer, you need that training because it's required for your license. And so, if I'm going to go under the knife, it's nice to know that that person actually has real degrees from a real university and real med school, right? But a lot of things we do, there's a big push right now. A lot of people, instead of going to college because it's so expensive, there's people that get these degrees and they get out in the real world and they can't apply them to anything. And if they do, they don't pay anything, and they got college debt up the yin-yang. There's people that go to trade schools and they make money in the process of working towards their certificate or whatever it is that they earn at these places. Think outside the box. Lateral thinking. See if there's other ways to get there. Okay, what we got here? So there's more than one way to get what you want. You don't have to, many don't see or deny alternatives. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times we poo-poo other ideas because this is what I was told I need to do to get to where I want to go, and this is what I'm going to do. But you could do it this way. Oh, no. We have to be open to that because it may be faster and cheaper. This is a map of the United States with all of the interstates on it. Say you're trying to get from the West Coast to the East Coast. What would you take? Okay, you could take like this one right here. I don't see it. It's at I-90. I can't read it. It's 80. You could take that from coast to coast. Or you can try another one, go farther south and go that way, or go farther north and go that way. Or, you know, you might want to see some sights and go up north or south and see some sights along the way. So you got some options, okay? Other options you have is form of transportation. You can drive, you can take a train, bus, or fly. There's more than one way to get to where you want to go. Now, if you've seen my navigation video, I talked about that. Basically is like your navigational system, the modern ones. If you have something, an obstacle in your way of getting to where you're going, it'll give you some alternatives. Same thing with everything else in life, whether it's your career, your relationships, anything. There's always alternatives. Let's see here. What else we got? Change in perspective, okay? A lot of times we have to step back from a situation and get a little different point of view on it to try to figure out how to get around that. Barriers. Now, one of the times that my company relocated me from one state to another, it was very challenging. I got full relocation. They paid for my hotel. They paid for packing and moving my household belongings. They helped me sell the house that I was in. They helped me buy my next house in a new location. But we were running into a lot of challenges, and it was getting to the point where it felt like a dead end, you know? I remember my wife, when she was out house hunting, she says, we need more money. We need a bigger loan. And fortunately, I was able to do that. They did that 2 or 3 times. We were able to get that approved. But the thing is, I started thinking about stuff, how we were able to get over things, and stuff would keep popping up. And it's like, you know, this is really not a dead end. It's more of just a speed bump. The problem didn't change. The way I was looking at it changed. So a lot of times when you're going from point A to point B, you have to stand back, take a breath, reframe, have faith in the process. Like the people from my company, they were helping me out. I just had to just say, they're going to help us get through this. And they did. Be flexible, be patient. These kind of options that I'm talking about exist everywhere in life. And you can use these skills, these tools everywhere in life, not just your career or school or whatever. All right, my first application of these concepts. When I was in college, I was a math tutor, statistics primarily. And I'd always try to help my students not only just learn the particular subject, you know, whether it was doing different kinds of averages, things like that. I'd also explain to them why this is important. See how it's going to relate to them in their personal life, you know, when they see things on the news or, read the newspaper and they talk about averages and what the difference means and how people try to steer you with statistics, basically lie to you, but make you think you know what you're talking about or they're talking about. How it would apply in their major. Like for me, I was a psych major. I needed to have stats. Or, you know, it also is used in business. So try to get them to apply that. Even if they weren't going anyplace, they were just taking it because it was required for whatever reason. How they could use it in their real life and make it understandable, make it meaningful. So it wasn't just learning how to plug things in variables and get an answer out and write that on the test and pass the test. I'd also teach them when I found out they were struggling with study skills, you know, how to learn. I taught a lot of my clients, my students, how to learn. And those skills were leverageable, applicable to other classes they were having. I remember a few times I had students come up to me and say, Don, man, I'm doing really well in statistics, but I'm also doing really good in history and sociology and all those other classes because I know now how to study. The same thing with the rules of school, you know, like, you know, who do I talk to drop out of this class and pick up another class or whatever. I taught them those things. It was more applicable to the school that we were both going to than anything else. But these skills and tools can be leveraged for other areas. What are the rules? In your situation, like in college, there are rules. Some are hard, some are flexible. Now, for me, when I was going to that community college, the hard rule was I had to take math, even though I wasn't going to use it, and it wasn't required for my major. But I had to take a math class because it was a check mark on my transcript. What are flexible? Okay. Now, going back to when I went to the university, instead of taking humanities, getting that humanities credit with ancient Greek and Roman history, I could have put something else in there. And I probably would have passed. I probably would have enjoyed it. I probably might have stayed a year instead of getting booted out. I don't know. But anyhow, you need to learn those. Some things are not negotiable. Some things are. My first year in college, my dad's advice, follow this formula, which in my opinion was a washout formula. And that's what it did to me. It washed me out of school. Okay, the flow. What are not your flow? What's against your flow? Here's some things. Flow, when you think of flow, you think of water. You think of rivers. Okay, have you seen a river go uphill before? It doesn't do that. It follows gravity. It goes downhill. Eventually, it'll end up in the ocean, right? So here's some things that might go through your head when you're thinking about your career or schooling, whatever. And they may not be true, because if you start doing the lateral thinking of seeing things from a different angle, you may find out it's not true, or it may be true. I need to go back to school. I remember when I dropped out of school the first time, I tried to get a job. And the thing is that I think it's still true today. Getting a degree in soft sciences like sociology or psychology or anthropology at a bachelor's level isn't worth the paper it's printed on. You're not going to make any money doing that, unlike if you're taking engineering or whatever. You need to go back to school. That's what I kept thinking. I was thinking about, learning how to do drafting. That was before CAD/CAM. Things I can make more money. Otherwise, I was going to be just making minimum wage before I finally decided to go back to school. So it was, for me, for what I want to do, is true. Or I need to learn more math. Say you're in a position to where it requires a higher level math. You're working with engineers, or you're doing calculations for businesses, stats, statistics. It may be true. Or it may be, math's not my thing. I want to go find a job to where I don't need math. I need to lose weight. What's that in there for? You're heavy, like I used to be. I can't get in front of a group of people feeling like I'm fat and everybody's looking at my fat. Could be true, possibly. But my 2 cents is focus more on where you want to go. And maybe the weight loss will come along with that. Just different things that cause weight gain, right? Stress eating, being around people that like to eat a lot, so you eat a lot, your friends do. Focus, I guess what I'm saying with that is a lot of times we focus on, I have to get ready before I start. Start now, and you'll learn along the way to get to where you want to go. Yeah, if you want to lose weight, lose weight. Exercise. Here's an old one. I need to type faster. Now, I took typing, which I think they call keyboarding now since we don't have typewriters, in high school, because we didn't have computers then, and you had to type up your papers for school. And I was a hunt and peck kind of guy, So I learned how to use all fingers, how to use electric typewriters. But the thing is that I had an upper limit. My error rate stayed at the same level and my speed stayed at the same level. And if I pushed it, my error rate would go up. So I learned then that I wasn't going to be a key punch operator or a typist, or if it required that for data entry, like what they do today, that's not my job. That's not my skills. That's not my gifts in life. And this last one is common in certain cultures and can be, or through tradition in families. You get pressure from your family and or your parents that my parents want me to become a lawyer. Everybody's a lawyer in my family. My dad's a lawyer, my mom's a lawyer, my grandparents were lawyers, my brothers and sisters are lawyers. But I like art. That's not going to work too well. Again, focus on your gifts. Focus on what you're good at, not what you're not good at. I'll say more about that later. But anyhow, that's not going in your flow, okay? Your inner voice is telling you something different than what the outside world is telling you. You need to really listen to that inner voice. It's there for a reason. We're all here for a reason. We all have a purpose. We need to find that, because if we find that, life is much better, much more fulfilling. Okay, so getting back to martial arts, and this isn't about martial arts. This is Bruce Lee. If you've probably seen him in the movies back in the day. Anyhow, he's also somewhat of a philosopher. Bruce Lee, empty your mind. Be formless and shapeless like water. Now put water in a cup. It becomes the cup, the shape of the cup. It goes into a bottle, becomes the bottle, shape of the bottle. Into a teapot, becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Now this kind of sounds like it doesn't fit what I just got through saying. Don't fit in, don't go with the flow. No, it's about being able to adapt. We're always adapting, and those who can adapt quickest do the best. You hear the expression in business about pivoting. Markets change, laws change, things change. You still want to stay in business. You still want to stay employed. You might have to go get some training. You may have to transfer to a different job. Change is the only constant in the world, in the universe. We have to be willing to adapt, be like water, again, flowing. All right. So yeah, don't go with the flow. That's not the flow I'm talking about. Which is just get along, hang. You may be in a group of people. That's what the requirement is, or what there's to expect. It's just don't make waves. Just get along. Just do your job. Don't cause any ruckus. Yeah, sure, some people are not working as hard as you, or vice versa. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just fit in. It's an act. You're acting now. And when you act, guess what? You lose sleep at night. You lose self-respect, things like that. No, that's not what the flow is. It's not about going with the flow. Okay. Oh, again, about the flow of water. It goes to its destiny. The destiny is the ocean, and it does it without effort. Okay, what's helping it? Gravity. If it didn't have gravity, it'd probably have water floating around everywhere. Avoid functional fixedness. This is another psychological term. It's we see things in one way. We see only one way to accomplish that task or that goal. That's the way we've always done it. I remember going to a company and working in a group, and I thought, there's better ways to do this. And I remember them saying, like, we didn't invent it here. This is how we do things. It's like, you're wasting a lot of time. So being fixed in how you do things, you want to be able to be open to new ways of doing things. Flowing towards your goals, your desires, your destiny, your gifts, your talents. That's what the flow is. It's not about going with the flow. It's about leveraging your strengths, your gifts, and your talents. And your passion. There's something in your heart that tells you, I need to go this direction. And the direction you pick may be a little off, like me, wanting to become a doctor, and I decided to change my major to psychology. Would have done really well in either field. As you get closer to your flow, Oh, one more thing about the flow. It means not wasting your time, money, or fixing your weaknesses. Now, I remember in school, I had some learning disabilities. I wasn't a very good reader. I'm not good at math. I can't keep numbers in my head. I've tried several times, and you may find this funny, but I don't remember my tables. In other words, people can look at numbers and add them up in their head really quick. I can't do that. I have to process. I'm a process person, not a memory person. Probably from being sick as a kid, maybe got a little brain damage. Never know. But schools will want you to work on what you're deficient in. And, maybe if it's reading or basic math, yeah, you might want to brush up on that. But the thing is that life is short. Trust me, life is short. You can tell by looking at me. I wasn't born yesterday. Life is very short. And if you want to get things done in your life, you want to accomplish something before you croak, you want to find the fastest, easiest, most straight line way to get there. And so you take your gifts and your talents and really focus on them, because that's what you're here for. To use those for yourself, for your community, for your family. Focus on those, because otherwise you're just wasting time and effort on things that don't really matter. If you have a business and you're not good with numbers, hire a bookkeeper, hire an accountant. They love it. Let them do it. That's their gifts. Okay, what do we got with here? Oh, as you get closer to your flow, one of the things you're going to start noticing, it's like a magnet or gravitational pull. Things start to work better and you feel a pull towards that. I can't explain it, it just works that way. Sometimes you go faster, sometimes you meet some resistance and get stuck for a while, but it's not always constant movement, okay? You're gonna have good days and bad days whether you're in your flow or not, okay? You feel you're getting pulled towards your flow. The closer you get, the stronger it gets. Example. Okay, here's an example for you. Okay, back in the days when I was working in corporate, I worked for a company that had internal training and education department. That's what they called it. So they had people on staff that did teaching for different things, whether it was management, communication skills, different computer skills, things like that. I taught a few things. So, I did teaching and tutoring in college. And I thought to myself, hey, I'm up for this. I took a lot of the classes, I met a lot of the instructors, and I thought, I could do this. But I didn't know what they needed for training. I mean, I talked to them a little bit, but I wanted to go meet with the hiring manager to see what he's looking for. And when you're in your flow, the right people and resources move into your path, and you will recognize them. Opportunities are all around us, but we don't always recognize them. We learn to recognize them. One of the things I learned in real estate investing is everything's for sale. You just got to keep your eyes open for opportunities. So anyhow, I went and did an informational interview, and I've did a few of these, and I had this happen a couple times, and it was just mind-blowing. I went and talked to the manager, and I said, look, I've got this background, I'm doing IT work, but I would really like to teach because I've done tutoring in the past, and I'm not sure what the requirements are here. Can you give me some training I can go to, or going somewhere to get some extra experience if I need it? Well, within a half hour, I got the job offered to me right there on the spot. I wasn't interviewing for a job. I didn't even know they had an opening. But I got that because I was in my flow. I was going towards where I wanted to go, and I just stepped out of my comfort zone and went and set up an informational interview, and I got the job. So that's what the flow's like. It starts bringing people and resources into your world that's going to help you get to where you want to go. So, let me show you one more thing. These are people floating down the river. You notice they don't have any paddles or anything. They're just like going with the flow. This is what the flow is like. It's less, after you get into it, it's less energy, time saving, cheaper. But also, like being on this, you might get in the rapids and get into trouble. Or end up in a lake and have nothing taking you down river. But it's kind of like that. It kind of feels like that. It's not cold and wet, but it does feel like some things are being taken care of for you. All right, what else we got here? Oh, so what do? I help people discover their destiny, their purpose in life. I help them create goals and find their flow. I help turn dead ends into speed bumps. And like water when it's dammed up and finds its way, I help clients get around their stumbling blocks and they get back to their flow. So, once you working in your flow, is it effortless and automatic? No. You still have life to deal with. It can be faster, less effort, and cheaper, but like anything else, it takes time, effort, commitment, intention. Like traditional ways of doing things, it can be challenging, good and bad. It will require new habits to keep you in the flow, and you will hear others saying you can't do that. And you need to listen to that little voice you have in your head that says, oh yes, I can. However, daily life, career, finances will improve. Your life and career will become more rewarding and in line with your purpose and fulfilling. All right. So if you're still with me, here's the offer. You ready? Oh, and by the way, I said it's free. It is free. It costs you zero, zilch, nada. What is it? 5, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Coaching sessions, 1 hour, one-on-one with me. It will not be with an associate coach. It will not be with one of my students. You will be working with me. This is not a webinar where you get lost in hundreds of people who have no access to their presenter. It will have me, one-on-one. You'll have my undivided attention. How do I get started? Well, down in the description, you'll see my contact email. Send me an email and tell me a little bit about yourself and your situation and what you want to work on, where you think you want to go. Send me your email, your time zone. The reason being is a lot of people I work with are not in my state, not in my neighborhood. They're in different places. And days and times you'd be available for the next 7 days. What we'll do from that point is set up an appointment for a free, did I say free? Yes, I said free. Free half-hour discovery call. And what is this discovery call for? We see if we have a fit, we mesh well, meaning that what you're looking to do, I can help you with, okay? And also figure out what direction, what we're gonna do in those next 5 sessions, and we'll go from there. And again, did I say it was free? Yes, it's free. It will be free, okay? So, if you're interested, I look forward to getting an email from you. And if you're not, I will see you in the next video. That's Don signing out. Bye-bye.